Welcome to another episode of Oleh at Large, Aliyah Stories. Hello, and welcome back to Oleh at Large, Aliyah Stories. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly now because my sister, God bless her, pointed out to me that I continuously say Aliyah as opposed to Aliyah. I keep saying it wrong, so I'm going to try my best to say it right, and especially with this guest on today. So we have a really interesting guest on today. He is an author. He has started a really great initiative in 2024. Let's welcome Jeff Weiss to the podcast. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks so much, David. Great to be here.
Amazing. So, Jeff, you made Aliyah back in 2022. So where were you living before then? And what made you decide to make the plunge?
I was living in Florida immediately prior to my Aliyah. I had been in New York until about 6 months after the start of, 9 months after the start of COVID. And then like a lot of other folks left New York, went to Florida. Our company had shut down its Manhattan offices and we were looking to reopen down in Miami. So I did that. What made me take the plunge, I had lived in Israel for 2 years as a student way back in the 1980s and had gone back to the States always intending to return. And it just was the kind of thing that, it never seemed like the right time. And then I think the combination of COVID and the ability to work from anywhere, I think that in particular basically forced me to understand that I really could actually make the move now and continue to have continuity with my employment. And so decided that it was the time to do it. It was also influenced by a book that I had just finished writing about an American named Stan Andrews, who came to Israel, fought in the War of Independence, was one of the first fighter pilots. And I decided that if I admired him so much for what he had done, perhaps I should try to emulate to some extent his example of essentially living my truth.
I completely hear that. And the ability to work from anywhere was the thing actually that made it possible for me as well. So did the company you were working for or with, or is it your own company, did they support you in your move in any way? Or is this something that you just told them, hey, I'm doing this and it's good with your policies, so I'll see you from Israel?
I guess more the latter. It was very friendly. I was a C-suite executive. I'd been with the company by then for 10 years. And, by that time into COVID, folks had scattered all over the place. So it wasn't that unusual. Obviously the time difference was a bigger factor and that put some pressure on my working hours. But other than that, it really wasn't a big deal for either side. And then the company ended up being sold in June of 2023. So I only had about 12 months of having to deal with a 7-hour time difference to the East Coast.
Right. So what kind of company was it?
It's a long story. A company was called Enjoy. It was one of the first and biggest independent electronic cigarette companies and one of the first and only ones to get FDA authorizations for its products, which in the end was what led to its being sold.
Ah, great. So hopefully you made a great exit. And when you made Aliyah, was it with family, alone, with a pet? Was it just yourself?
It was alone.
Okay.
I am divorced, have 4 children. They all live still in the States in the Northeast. But yeah, I came by myself and no pets.
Okay. And did you have help? Did you do it by yourself? Did you use Nefesh B'Nefesh? What did you do?
I used Nefesh B'Nefesh, certainly did the Aliyah process through them, have hit them up with questions from time to time. I think they're absolutely great. Had some friends who are already here. But, honestly, I think, I'll just speak for myself. I always, over the years, have thought of Israel as it was in the 1980s, when I think it was a much sort of tougher nut to crack for Western olim. And Israel really has become just a much more sort of user-friendly country. And, meeting folks here, finding an apartment, getting utilities hooked up and all of the rest, it just was not nearly as difficult as I had perhaps anticipated. I think for me, one of the things that helped was I learned Hebrew when I was here in the 80s, actually did my first year of law school at Bar Ilan in Hebrew, and over the years have kept up with my Hebrew by reading. So at least that wasn't, a huge barrier for me in terms of being able to get things done here, which was great.
Terrific. And when you moved here, did you look around for someplace to live? Did you know where you wanted to live because you had been here already? What was your trajectory?
I have a brother who lived here for 10 years. He's basically taking kind of an extended leave in South America, of all places. So I was able to use his apartment for most of the first year. A friend had suggested the Old North section of Tel Aviv. Checked it out, really did decide like it seemed like the right spot. And so rented an apartment starting about 2 years ago here. I'm in the process of extending for another year and really do love this part of Tel Aviv.
I agree. It's a wonderful part of Tel Aviv. I've been bouncing around to different places while hopefully my apartment is going to be ready sometime soon. The building will get our Tovas Arba sometime soon. And I spent about a month in the Old North off of Ben Gurion, and it was great. I mean, such a beautiful, great neighborhood. So I completely support that. So what are you doing now in Tel Aviv? And were you able to establish a social network? Were you able to establish a network in general here?
Yeah, I think doing a couple things. I really have found this to be a great place to meet people. When I first moved here after the sale of the company, I was working with a venture firm and started to network with young entrepreneurs here. And they're a great group. Made a lot of friends that way, and then basically reconnected with people that I had known from the States who had made Aliyah. And then in terms of how I've occupied myself, it's been a mix of things. Finished my third book within the last year or so, just came out in October. It's a fitness memoir. And then started this project, Stickers of Meaning, back in 2024, launched it formally right before October 7th, 2024. And the goal had been to launch it before the first anniversary of October 7th. And then recently joined another startup. So it's been pretty eventful since I got here.
So tell us about Stickers of Meaning. And there's plenty of people who listen to this podcast that are not in Israel day to day. So give us a snapshot of what the stickers are like here in Israel as you walk around, really, unfortunately, everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, basically. So you walk around Israel, in the cities in particular, and you see these stickers on poles, on benches, particularly in train stations, really any place where lots of people tend to pass through. And the stickers have on them a picture of someone who was killed either on October 7th itself or soldiers who have died in fighting since October 7th. You know, typically it's a picture of the person, their name, year of their birth, year of their death. And then what struck me was time and again, I was seeing on these stickers the inclusion of a motto or slogan that clearly had some meaning to the person who was featured on the sticker. And I thought the first part of the sticker, having the name and the dates, you know, that seemed like the kind of thing you might see in any country experiencing these kinds of losses. But the motto struck me as so uniquely Israeli. I'll read you to some examples. If you're afraid of what people will say about you, you won't get to be yourself. How many times have you asked yourself, what if, and how much have you missed while waiting for the answer? Don't let people break you. They didn't build you. Be stronger than your excuse. You know, these kinds of sort of motivational slogans. And I just found it so powerful and moving. In fact, the first one that caught my eye was one that said he fought out of love for those behind him rather than hatred of those in front of him. And I thought it was so moving and really so accurate in terms of the mindset, I think, of Israelis. So I was super inspired by them, but also, you know, you look at them and certainly my reaction was at some point they're going to disappear. They're going to, you know, weather and other things, they're going to peel off, be covered over by other stickers, by paint or whatever, and really wanted to see them preserved, wanted to see them categorized based on these different mottos, which it seemed to me fell into 15 or 16 distinct categories. Wanted to construct educational programs about them, particularly outside of Israel. We have a website, an Instagram page. We've shot a bunch of videos telling the stories of individual subjects of particular stickers. So that was basically the goal, to, you know, really bring this phenomenon kind of to greater attention so that people really are aware of it and understand it better, because I think there's so much learning that we can obtain from these things.
I think it's an incredible project, and it's something that I think is unique. I lived in New York City after 9/11, and as an example, and you didn't see that kind of memorialization in the city. And you certainly did not see, you know, the kind of personalization and sharing of people's personalities like that in the same way. So I do think you're right. I think this is a unique expression. Why do you think it's come out that way? Why do you think those mottos were added? Like,
I think it speaks to something deeper about Israel and Israelis. The book, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, is a book that has always, I think, resonated with Israelis generally. You see it in pretty much every bookstore, and not just on a shelf somewhere, but really displayed as though it had come out recently. And in fact, it became a bestseller in Israel again post October 7th. And I think it goes to, or part of the reason why Israelis perhaps unexpectedly, strangely, typically Israel ranks among the happiest countries in the world, despite all of the things that go on here, all of the challenges. And I think it's because it's a country, it's a people that really is infused with meaning and purpose and understanding. This whole concept of remembering your why during the tough times, which is so fundamental to the Viktor Frankl book. And I think people here really internalize that. And I think the stickers are a reflection because it has been such a spontaneous phenomenon. Nobody organized this. Nobody, suggested, hey, if you've lost somebody, you should put out a sticker and you should include some kind of motto. It's just something that happened on its own. And, to me, it's incredibly powerful.
So it's an interesting time now. So we are in the process of, as we're recording this, we are getting some of the final hostages home. A few have been brought home and laid to rest today, last night. Is there a time when the stickers come down and then what happens to them? And, is there a moment after? Or is that just something that, it's hard to visualize right now?
I think a couple things. I think first, thankfully, happily, I am cautiously optimistic that we are in a period where we will see fewer and fewer stickers going up, new ones going up, which is wonderful, which I also think means that at some point we will see them start to disappear from the scene physically. But I think it is a phenomenon that we should continue to study and learn from. I think it's so powerful what post-October 7 has revealed, I think, to this country about the strength of the young generation. This was the generation that was dismissed before the war as, the TikTok generation, young people obsessed with social media, lacking purpose, lacking commitment, kind of the strength of character of earlier generations. And now I think what we've seen over 2 long years of war is this is an astonishing generation, a strong, powerful, inspiring generation. And I think that's something it can and I think should be a source of great comfort to us as we ponder these last 2 years. And I do think that there will be a lot of effort made to define what Israel has just gone through. And there are so many elements here that are complicated. You have, in some ways, of course, the trauma and failures of the Yom Kippur War, combined with some of the miracles and inspiration of the 6-Day War. It has been an astonishing roller coaster ride, but a constant throughout all of it has been this remarkable young generation and their elders, their parents, the ones who have absorbed these losses and yet managed to carry on and to honor those that they have lost personally. So yeah, I think physically the stickers will go. And in some ways, of course, that's a good thing. But I think the messages can and should continue to be with us.
So in addition to this project, you said you also have a new book coming out. And so you've written, this is your 3rd book. So the first book you had mentioned earlier was about Stan Andrews. So that was your first book.
That was actually the second book.
Oh, that's the second book. Huh.
The first book was called I Am My Brother's Keeper, and it was about the 1,000 or so Americans and Canadians who came to Israel in 1948 to take part in the War of Independence and were central primarily to the formation of the Air Force. And in the course of the research for that book, which came out back in 1998, the year of Israel's 50th anniversary, came across the story of Stan Andrews, who to me was one of the very most compelling of the volunteers, a very assimilated Jew from New York, an artist, a writer. He was a bomber pilot in World War II in the Pacific, and he came to Israel, joined the 1st Fighter Squadron, actually designed its logo, which that particular squadron still exists, and they still use that logo to this day. I really fell in love with his story and spent a huge amount of time because it was hard to track down his family and his materials, but basically worked on that for probably over 15 years. And that book came out in 2022 and then just came out again in paperback with a new introduction post the war with Iran. That book was called Fighting Back. And then the most recent one is a fitness memoir. I got involved with endurance sports, Ironman, ultramarathons, and wrote a book about that journey called Racing Against Time that came out just this past October.
Let me ask you, if you don't mind, about just that experience in terms of releasing a book in these times. And as a visibly Jewish author with Israel-related and certainly pro-Israel and pro-Zionist titles with your name attached to them, have you had any challenges getting book reviews or getting listed or sold or anything like that? Because I've seen articles about this, that some Jewish authors have had these problems. And I'm just curious if you've seen any of that at this point.
I've seen those articles too. To this point, I haven't experienced that or seen that. it is something, honestly, that's always on my mind. And so I do try to stay on the topic that I'm talking about. So if I'm doing a podcast interview about the fitness book, I'll always tell the interviewer, if they ask me where I'm speaking from, that I'm in Tel Aviv, that I live here now. But otherwise, I stay on message. So if they ask me about a fitness book, I talk about a fitness book. If I'm being interviewed about fighting back or about Brother's Keeper, I talk about those. This is one of those unusual ones where I end up talking about kind of all of it, but typically it really does stay to one book or one topic. And so, I don't think it necessarily stands out to somebody, I guess, other than perhaps my last name, that this is someone who's Jewish, but we'll see, over time. I mean, the fitness book has only been out for a month, and I guess I may have some unpleasant surprises down the road, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Okay, Jeff, so you've been in Tel Aviv for a couple of years now. What is your favorite place to eat in Tel Aviv?
That's a really good question. I honestly don't know that I have a particular favorite place. I love Basel Square, which is very close to where I live, and they've got some nice restaurants there, and it's just got a nice vibe there. Honestly, I like the food court at the Azrieli Center, and in general, really like the Azrieli Center. I still walk through Tel Aviv, almost sometimes feeling like I stepped out of a time machine, that I got into the time machine in the 1980s, in 1980s Tel Aviv, 1980s Israel, and now I've appeared in this ultra-modern, ultra kind of convenient, ultra cool place. And I'm constantly shocked by it. And I'm constantly, I think, drawn to the places that are most starkly different from how Israel used to be. And the Azrieli Center is probably high up on that list. But yeah, I think for food and I guess for shopping, those would be my top choices.
You like the American feeling of the mall. I feel that. When I lived in London, I felt most at home for my first year or two at the Westfield Mall.
Yeah, I love it, but I also love walking along the Tayelet, the boardwalk along the beach.
Yeah, the best.
And I just feel like I'm surrounded by life, by young life, vibrant life, energetic life. And I always tell people, Tel Aviv's a young city. I'm not a young person, but I like being around a young vibe. And I just love kind of everything that it represents. You look out there and you see people doing incredible volleyball with their feet, gymnastics, matcoat, that paddle game in a pretty impressive way. And so, that's probably in some ways, my happy place, just walking along there.
I completely hear you. And do you have a favorite place other than the Azrieli Mall? Are you a Carmel Market guy? Any of the other markets?
I love the Carmel Market, and I love the routine, the rhythm of Fridays here. And I have my favorite places in the market. I go there every Friday without fail. I have a juice bar place that I hit, and I have a challah place that I really like. I have a Thai food place in one of the alleys that I always have lunch at on Fridays. I love going to Nachlat Binyamin, where they always have these art shows or fairs every Tuesday and Friday. So on Fridays, I go there. Yeah, I love all of that. And it's funny, when I was here in the 80s, the whole Friday thing never really spoke to me. I could never get my head around the fact that Friday here is a weekend day, and I still always felt like it was just another weekday. And so I used to always mourn not having a Sunday that was an American style Sunday. But now I'm totally into this Friday, Saturday thing. I think it's great.
So give me a rundown of your typical Tel Aviv Friday.
My typical Tel Aviv Friday, I have a nice scooter that I love. So I will scoot down the Tayelet, which is incredibly fun and uplifting. I will scoot down to the Carmel Market. I go in there, I walk up the hill, I hit my juice place, and they know me by now. I get a big smile, get my juice, go to my challah place, get my challah, go to my Thai place, have lunch. Go over to Nachlat Binyamin and, walk around the marketplace there. Sometimes I'll do some additional errands and shopping. I might go to the Dizengoff Center to get some things. And then, usually have a little bit of work to do, but tend to do that a little bit later in the day before Shabbat. And then for Shabbat, for Kabbalat Shabbat, there's an incredible shul in Tel Aviv. The address is 126 Ben Yehuda, and that's also its name, 126. And it's actually very American, but also very Israeli. So a huge percentage of the folks who go there are oleh from the States, but the announcements are in Hebrew and the Dvar Torahs, the sermons are in Hebrew, and it's incredibly vibrant and alive. The singing is fantastic, especially on Friday nights. And then I just love the energy there, and it's just packed. I tried like 5 or 6 shuls before I settled on that one, and I really, really love it. So that's kind of a pretty typical Friday for me. And then I'll squeeze in a workout and writing as well before I start any of that stuff. That's always how I begin each day, with an hour of writing and then my training, and then I start whatever else I have in store for that day.
All right. So one last question, and then we're going to do the word of the pod. What is next for you?
Joined a new startup. We're still early stage in what's known in the startup world as stealth mode. So, kind of keeping close to the vest, exactly what we're working on just yet, but it's with a group of guys that I've worked with before, and super excited to be part of another venture. I think, those of us who've been through the startup experience, or at least I think most of us, do find it to be somewhat intoxicating. It's really a journey. It's a lot of fun. I'll be doing more writing as well. I've always got another project that I'm working on. So yeah, and then continuing with the sticker project and continuing with training, still chasing after. I've done the first 3 of the 6 original world major marathons. I've done Tokyo, and this past year, London and Berlin, and need to still do Chicago, New York, and Boston, and we'll probably do them in that order over the next 2 years. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff to keep me out of trouble.
Absolutely. Wow. All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, so every episode we like to have a new word of the pod, an Israeli slang word that, unless you live here, you probably don't know it. So Jeff, do you have a word of the pod for us this episode?
I have a word and a story that comes with the word. And it's a word that, obviously anybody who's spent here, well, when I was here in the 80s, and it was actually my second year here, my first year I finished college at Hebrew University on the overseas program, so it was in English. Then my second year, I was a first-year law student in the regular Israeli program at Bar Ilan in Hebrew. And every day, the first few weeks, someone would come up to me and they'd say some version of Alan ma nishma, Alan ma koreh, Alan ma matzaf, Alan ma yini. And so the second part is, different ways of saying, how are you, how's it going? But that first word, Alan, I thought, why do they think my name is Alan? And this went on for like a couple of weeks, and I was really getting kind of frustrated. I thought, the next person who says that to me, I'm going to have to correct. Like, I can't just sort of accept that for this whole year, people are going to call me Alan. And then thankfully, before I could correct somebody, I was watching TV and saw a commercial and realized, oh, Alan is slang for hello. And it comes from the Arabic, Ahlan ve Sahlan, I think. So yeah, so Alan is still, of course, a very common way of saying hello here. And it's probably not terribly new slang to a lot of the folks who are listening to this, but the way that I learned it was kind of, I think, funny and unique.
Excellent. Alan. So it's basically hello.
Alan is hello.
Excellent. All right. Love it. Like aloha.
Exactly.
But you can't use Alan for goodbye like you can aloha.
No, I can't do that. Yeah.
Jeff, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate your time. And check out Jeff online. Tell us the name of the website and also how people can follow you on social media.
Website is jeffreyweissauthor.com. And probably where I'm most active on social media is LinkedIn, and findable there just as Jeffrey Weiss. I don't think there are too many of us.
And the website for the sticker project?
Stickersofmeaning.com. Stickers of meaning, all sort of one word bunched together.com.
Thank you. Great. All right, Jeff. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, David. Really enjoyed it.
No problem. Take care. Bye.
You too.
That's it for this episode of Oleh at Large, Aliyah Stories. I want to thank my guests and I want to thank you. Thanks for listening. Please give a like, give a follow, and catch you next time.